Hello and welcome. Welcome to TV Room. David Bradley here. I am your host. So, yeah, I had occasion as I was um, still recovering from my surgery and wounds and things. I had occasion to drive to Innisfil, Ontario, which is just south of Barrie. And you see, for a long time, I used to watch this show called Restoration Garage, and it was by the Guild of Automotive Restorers. And they were in Bradford, and they had a place there that had a large sort of windmill thing on the roof. And I never was in, but it looked like a very large kind of showroom, and then of course places for their wondrous mechanical things to happen in the back. And they restore cars. And I mean, when they restore cars, they restore cars. And I was quite intrigued when I first started watching to see the story of the Bugatti Aerolis, a car that did not exist. But there was one back somewhere, and there was like 5 pictures of it, and they had to recreate everything, and the body was made of magnesium, and they said, oh, we got to make it out of magnesium, which, for those that don't know, magnesium is quite difficult to work with and can start on fire. Anyway, if you watch the show, you know. And anyway, the show is over. I guess they did about 5 seasons. I haven't seen them all because they always seem to end up on some sort of network or whatever that I couldn't get. But I've seen some of them, and once in a while, one will pop up on my recordings, but I'm still hoping one day to catch up and see what's what. And over the years, I did have the odd message back and forth with the main fellow there, David Granger. Not very much, just now and again, and encouraging them to keep doing the show. And it was good. It was. There were a vast number of characters. Sometimes, you see the things, and this is supposed to be reality things, but on occasion you'd see things you'd say. I can remember they were building a car for some guy and put whatever wheels on. He decided they were too big. And then what they put on after that was just so incredibly, horribly small that you just knew, oh yeah, we're just, you know, doing the Goldilocks things. First they're too big, then too small. Oh, now they're just right. And I was just like, yeah, that's not really reality. So I suppose in a lot of reality things, a lot of it is scripted. And it's funny, my brother and I were part of a twin project years ago called Factum. And if you search on the internet under Factum Bradley, you can find it. And it's funny, there was this new teacher, an older new teacher, coming into teaching. And first, this thing, they would ask us questions, and we would answer them individually, and then it was all edited together. That's where the magic was. But there was this new, actually, student teacher who became a teacher, who kept on asking me over and over, who scripted that? Who scripted all that? And I don't know how many times I said, there was no script. They asked us the questions, we answered the questions. They didn't tell us what to say. I guess they could tailor their questions on what we said, but there was no script. There was no script. There was no script. Anyway, sadly, a lot of reality television is not real. Anyway, I digress. So I had always wanted to go to see the Guild, and I guess I was there once in the parking lot. They were not open on weekends, so I was once in the parking lot many years ago when Andrew had a bowling tournament in Bradford, and I realized, oh, look, this is here. And looking back on it, I should have made a real point to go there. Because by the time I then really took an active interest in saying, yeah, I really want to go there, the pandemic had come. And of course, we weren't supposed to go anywhere. And I did check online and it had closed. And by the time the pandemic was sort of coming to an end and they would have been open again, they decided to move to Innisfil, Ontario. So I thought, as I had another reason to go to Innisfil, I thought, oh, what a great time to drop in. And I envisioned that they would have had something similar to what they had, because the bits and pieces you could see on the TV show, there was a whole lot of showroom in the front and a whole lot of cars and motorcycles and things on the wall, and just like really it was like a destination. Well, now I don't know what the shop space was like. I mean, it looked like, they had various areas and things, but certainly the building was aged and such. So anyway, I suspected and I hoped when they moved that maybe they would have either had something built with a large sort of display area, or maybe if you've ever been to one of the Harley Davidson dealerships, they got a whole lot of stuff out front, and they got a whole lot of stuff out back, and and it's a good balance. You go, wow, look at the bikes, look at this, or a car dealership or whatever. Anyway, I don't know if they had this place built or if it was something they took over or whatever. But let me tell you, while the people were nice, I think they're over the whole TV thing. And really, if you're ever thinking, boy, I've got to go to the Guild and see what's there, don't do it. Don't bother. It's the area in front, like the showroom area, is tiny. Um, there's a motorcycle with a great big pan underneath where there's the obligatory oil leaking out. I don't remember what kind of motorcycle it was. There's a little wee car that I do remember. I think they acquired during some trip to the States, and it is a little wee car. And they are selling some interesting things, like they have some guild hats and other things. But really, the front area is tiny, and there's desks, not a whole lot of desks. And I did encounter quickly David Granger, but it looked like he had a lot on his mind, and I suspect too he is well over the uh, the TV thing, and it's a business, and they've got to run a business, and he had things on his mind. So he did say, "Oh yeah, there was probably more to see at the old place," and I'm sure there was. I did interact a little bit more with somebody I don't know whose name it was. It was, I guess, somebody who works there, whose voice I seem to remember from maybe the show. And then there was Janice, who is was on the show some, and is David's partner. So we talked a bit. But, I guess the show's over. They're done with it. They're over it. They have a business to run, and their business is to restore cars. And I'm sure they do wonderful things to cars from what I've seen. A lot of older, fast supercars, all kinds of things. But really, it's not a destination anymore. It's not like a museum anymore. It's not like, wow, come and see the wonderful things here. Because in this little area in the front, which is not very big, I don't know how big, but it's very narrow and shallow. Sorry, it's shallow and maybe not so narrow. It's wider, and I don't know how many like bays there are in the back, and you can kind of look through one door and see like one little sliver of something. But the back, I'm sure for insurance reasons and other things, is off limits, and I don't know how big it is, but I suppose, and I would hope that it's bigger and better suited to what they do, so they can do more and be more profitable and do great things. Um, but certainly, I really wish that I had made it to the place in Bradford before it closed. But it was, I could have. It was just one of those things where just circumstances and such came up where it just never happened. But I wish it had. I mean, peering through the window a little bit, that time I was in the parking lot on a weekend, was certainly not nearly as wonderful as going in. Oh, one thing they did have there, and I thought about it, they had MAGA hats. Make America Go Away. And I pondered this, but the price of these baseball type hats was $34.95 plus tax, and I thought, no, 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 no. So I didn't stay there very long. But above all, I wouldn't, unless, as I told them, if I ever win the lottery, I will come back. And chances are, I will bring my old Harley Davidson server car, which is a 3-wheel motorcycle with a 45 cubic inch flathead engine, and I will have them do wonderful things to it. And mind you, if I win the lottery, I will be prepared to spend and have it glorious. But unless something like that happens, I will not go back again. Because it's not a destination anymore. It's a place of business. It is not a place to see the wonderful things. Like, for example, the Brigada Aerolith was not there. As I said, there was one motorcycle with a great big pan underneath with a little bit of oil. Not much, a little bit of oil. And this other car, and that's pretty much it. And so I guess they are focusing on what it is that they do. The show is over, although they do still do things on YouTube, and I would encourage you to check out. I think their channel on YouTube is called the Guild Garage, and they still do YouTube things. And who knows? Maybe they should do more of them. I have to check things out. I did see there was one there where they had the Bugatti Aerolith, and they were in the presence of Jay Leno, who is a avid car collector. And I haven't watched it yet, but I will. Anyway, I do have regrets about not making it to the old place while it was still open. I do. Because it did look, well, kind of like this room here. It had lots of stuff and lots of character and lots of history. Apparently they were in that building, I guess, starting in 1999, so they've been there more than 20 years. And I know on one of the shows they had an auction where they sold off some things. And they had a big storage yard where they had all kinds of David's toys and tractors and things. And from the sounds of it, there was an upstairs area where they had parts and parts and parts and parts and parts. Anyway, I'm glad that, well, I hope that this move has been good business-wise in terms of more space, and they can turn out wonderful, magical things. And I'm hoping that one day I can see the rest of the episodes that I've not seen, because there was a Delahaye car that they were doing, and I never did get to see and hear the disposition of the Delahaye. I know they were very concerned about the coloring, and there was this orange stripe that had to be just right. So I don't know how it went. And where I live, and I found out just when I went there was a fellow on the show named Larry. And not that Larry the mechanic, but Larry he and they flipped cars together. And he had an old Cord, which was a yellow car, which occasionally I would see around the streets here. I haven't seen it for a while. Well, that's because he's moved, I think, from what I heard, to British Columbia. But there was a time, I remember, when my clothes dryer, had screwed up. And I said, oh, that's not good. So did I run out and do what a lot of people do and say, oh, well, I have to get a matching everything? No. I went on Kijiji, and maybe 10 or 11 blocks away or so, I found one at a reasonable price. And chances are their washer went bad, and whoever it was, probably the mother, said, oh, well, we have to have a matching set. So they were selling off the dryer, and I got it. So I had it in the back of my car with the hatch open, and I had, it was leaning in. It wasn't going to fall out, but I was driving pretty gingerly. And I got to this T intersection, and there at the other side of the T intersection, I think his name was Larry Burns. There he was, in his vintage Cord. And he was signaling that I should go, and I just shook my head and waved him on, because I knew this dryer wasn't going to fall out. But I certainly didn't want to have it fall out and have him crash into it in his vintage, I think it was 1930s or so Cord. So I just waved him on. And occasionally, when Andrew and I would sit on this bench and we would throw a baseball and such, the car would go by and we would wave. But I never did get to talk to him. And I guess now that he's moved away, they're not really doing the car flipping, and the show is over. But I will try and catch up on the YouTube episodes, especially the one with Jay Leno and other such things. Anyway, but as I say, if you were a fan of the Guild Garage or Restoration Garage or whatever the show was, I guess it had different names depending on what network it was on, and you're thinking of making the journey to Innisfil and have this aha moment, stay home. do something else. If you have a car that needs, to be restored and you want to take it there, I'd say, from what I know, they do great work. I'm sure they are not shy about charging for the great work that they do, as most garages are not. But it's not a destination. It's not a place to make a great pilgrimage to anymore. It is not. Reminds me a lot of, I remember when Harley Davidson turned 100. They had events here and there, and they had one in Barrie, and I rolled my old Civic car to it and looked around and was like, And I did go. They had a little booth thing that you could go and record your thoughts on the whole event and such. And Harley has long had a motto or a saying or whatever that said, "It's not the destination, it's the journey." Well, when you're riding a vintage old motorcycle for some, I don't know, 50, 60 miles or whatever it was, it is. The journey is an adventure. Because, well, they're not fast. And, so yes, indeed, the journey was an adventure. And the destination was rather underwhelming. Much like what it would be like to go to the new Guild garage. I really thought there would have, as I say, moved into an old Harley dealership with a great big thing and had more stuff out front. But once again, all that stuff, I suppose, all that space costs money and such, and they don't. I guess, they just had more stuff to show. Maybe they sold things off. I don't know. I don't know if COVID horribly damaged what they were doing. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm glad I went. Disappointed in what I saw. Interesting to see quickly David and for a little bit more Janice and talk a little bit. Because obviously I was sort of in the, wow, I watched your show thing, and I think they're pretty much over that. So, yeah. I wish I had gone while they were still in Bradford, and I could have seen all the magic and all the stuff on the walls and here and there and everything, and just, wow, what a great place, instead of what I did. So, as I say, you need something, call them. You want to set up something, call them. But, don't travel a great distance to say, oh my God, I'm at the Guild Garage, isn't this wonderful? Because it ain't. It ain't. It's, as I say, I would like to think it's what they need in what they're doing. I'm sure it was not cheap to move. And hopefully they're still turning out great things, and more of them because they have more shop space. And I wish them well. But as I say, unless I win the lottery, unlike Arnold Schwarzenegger, I won't be back. Bye for now.